It's the morning of January 15th, 1947, in Leimert Park, a quiet neighborhood in southwest Los Angeles. The air is heavy with fog. A local housewife named Betty Bersinger is taking her young child for a walk down South Norton Avenue. As she passes an empty lot, she spots something pale resting in the weeds. Because the object is so stark white, she assumes someone has discarded a broken mannequin. As she gets closer, she realizes it isn't plastic. It is the body of a young woman. She has been severed in half at the waist, and her remains have been posed with deliberate, unnerving precision. Hands raised over her head, elbows bent at right angles. When detectives arrive, they immediately notice a glaring physical anomaly. Despite the severe trauma, there is absolutely no blood on the ground. The killer had drained the body of fluids, washed it clean, and transported it to this open space after the fact. The LAPD quickly realized they were dealing with a highly unusual homicide. The culprit had constructed a gruesome exhibition, staging a body in plain sight to shock a city that prided itself on manufacturing beautiful illusions. Before police could search for a suspect, they had to figure out who the victim was. The killer had stripped her of all personal belongings, leaving behind no purse, clothing, or identification. To bypass the slow mail system, the lead homicide captain authorized an experimental approach. They used a sound photo machine, an early version of the fax machine used by news services, to transmit enlarged photographs of the victim's fingerprints directly to the FBI Identification Division in Washington. This newspaper clipping shows the result of that transmission. Federal analysts matched the prints to civil service records. The victim was 22-year-old Elizabeth Short. She moved to California to pursue acting, known for her dark hair, green eyes, and tailored black clothing. But the reality of post-war Hollywood was harsh. Short had no acting credits. Instead, she drifted through a highly unstable lifestyle, bouncing between rented rooms and waitressing jobs in the 6 months leading up to her death. She had come to the West Coast looking to get her name in lights. The tragic irony is, she achieved that global fame, but only by becoming the focal point of the city's most infamous murder investigation. 9 days after the discovery, a package arrived at a local newspaper office. It reeked of gasoline, which the sender had used to wipe away their fingerprints. Inside were Elizabeth Short's birth certificate, photographs, and an address book, marking a direct taunt from the killer. The tabloid press capitalized on Short's dark hair and a recent movie title, branding her the Black Dahlia. They painted her as an adventurous, prowling Hollywood boulevard, pushing newspaper sales to heights unseen since the end of World War II. Driven by public hysteria, the LAPD launched a sprawling dragnet. Over the course of the investigation, they would pull in and interrogate more than 150 different suspects. This graphic illustrates the sheer volume of individuals the police had to process. Detectives questioned Short's father, soldiers from the local army base, and dozens of men she had dated, slowly clearing them one by one. They looked closely at Robert "Red" Manley, a married salesman who was the last confirmed person to see Short alive outside the Biltmore Hotel. However, Manley had a solid alibi for the night the body was dumped and successfully passed a polygraph test, eliminating him from the suspect pool.
Meanwhile, the intense media coverage created a bizarre side effect. Attention seekers began walking into police stations to claim responsibility for the crime. Detectives had to waste valuable time disproving dozens of false confessions, completely muddying the evidentiary waters. The sensationalized myth of the Black Dahlia actively protected the culprit. As reporters trampled over leads and hid witnesses to secure exclusive scoops, the media circus degraded the LAPD's ability to conduct an organized, factual manhunt. Medical examiners noted that the bisection was performed using a technique known as a hemicolporectomy. This procedure cleanly severs the lumbar spine without shattering the surrounding bone, which suggested the killer possessed advanced anatomical knowledge. This specific profile led investigators to Dr. George Hodel, a prominent physician who ran a downtown clinic. He possessed the anatomical knowledge required to commit the act and a remarkably cold, composed demeanor. 3 years into the cold case, the district attorney's office took a drastic measure. In early 1950, they secretly planted hidden microphones inside Dr. Hodell's private residence to monitor his conversations. The surveillance tapes captured Hodell making cryptic statements. In one recording, he was heard whispering about his secretary's recent death, adding, "Supposin' I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." It was highly suspicious, but fell short of a definitive legal confession. This document outlines a proposal from modern investigators, including Hodell's own son, a former LAPD detective. It highlights an ongoing effort to compare DNA profiles extracted from the 1947 crime scene evidence directly to Dr. George Hodell's records. Hodell fit the profile of a sophisticated predator, a man with the surgical expertise to perform the bisection and the social standing to remain beyond the reach of the law. Despite massive grand jury probes in 1949 and dedicated cold case task forces, the momentum of the investigation collapsed. The district attorney failed to secure a single indictment. The sheer volume of discarded suspects, 192 men officially investigated and cleared, overwhelmed the system. Because the killer had meticulously washed the body and removed it from the primary crime scene, detectives lacked the hard physical evidence needed to close the net. Whoever severed Elizabeth Short in half managed to slip permanently back into the shadows. They left behind no smoking gun, and they faced no justice. The collapse of the case established a chilling reality. Even with the entire country watching, a killer with enough skill and caution could commit a masterpiece of violence and disappear forever. Decades later, the case refuses to fade from public consciousness. It remains the most infamous unsolved murder in American history, spawning countless books, films, and endless speculation. The fascination stems from the stark contrast driving the story. On the surface, 1940s Hollywood was a machine that produced pristine movie stars. But Short's death exposed a brutal, corrupt reality operating just out of frame. Elizabeth Short became a permanent symbol of the city's vulnerable, devoured dreamers, those who arrived seeking a spotlight and found only a dark alleyway. She became the ultimate cinematic nightmare, an open file from which Los Angeles has never woken up.